The Marvel Cinematic Universe is the biggest movie franchise of all time by a mile. It's not even close. And I figured it was a good time for me to rank all of the movies, considering Black Widow just got pushed to July. It seems like it's finally coming out because it'll be on Disney Plus too. Just the fact that that's starting phase 4, I think is a good time to rank all of these movies from the perspective of somebody that's not really a comic book fan. I'm gonna go from my favorite to least favorite for these franchise rankings just because I have more to talk about with the ones I like more, and I think a lot of people will be less angry with me if I talk about my favorites first and then move my way down. I've seen every single one of these movies in the theater when they were originally released, and that's not something I could say for every single franchise out there, especially one that has like over 20 movies. It's like 24 or 23, something like that we're gonna talk about today. And I can't praise Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, all these people enough for being able to pull off such an incredible universe. Even though it's not my personal taste in movies, I can't help but respect what this entire studio has done over the course of the past over 10 years now. It's almost 15 years at this point. So that being said, let's talk about every single Marvel movie in the cinematic universe, starting with my favorite, Infinity War.
Fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe.
This is exactly what I want from a Marvel movie. So many of these characters work so much better for me when they have a smaller role to play in a bigger picture. And the great thing about the Russo brothers directing a lot of these bigger Avengers films is they know how to give every single one of these characters a moment to shine. The stakes are the highest they've ever been. The film gets the darkest the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever been. And it's just non-stop throughout the entire runtime. The pace never breaks at any point. Thanos is the best villain in the entire franchise. I know that's not really saying much, but hey, you get where Thanos is coming from, and even though you don't necessarily agree with him, he doesn't seem like a crazy psychopath that just wants to be bad for no reason. He has a point to what he wants to do. He's still crazy, but he's got a motivation, you know? Overall, it has the best action in the entire franchise, like when you have Hulk taking on Thanos 1v1, you have a bunch of the Avengers against Thanos on that one planet, you got this entire full-scale war in Wakanda. It just, every single aspect that you'd want from these Marvel movies, it has every little bit of action that'll satisfy anybody's want. This thing just had so much stupid hype to live up to. And even to this day, I'm shocked that it lived up to that hype. The final 15 minutes of the movie is going to be talked about for decades to come. I mean, the snap has solidified itself in movie history, and I think it does it for a good reason. Whenever I have the urge to watch a Marvel movie, this is definitely the one I'm gonna throw on. It's probably in my top 5 comic book films ever. It's just a great time, and I really do think it's Marvel's best film so far.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
This is the one that everybody puts in their top 3, and I think it's for a very good reason. It really does rival some of the best James Bond movies in terms of just being an awesome spy thriller. And I like how it's one of the few solo movies that actually has consequences that affect the entire franchise. 'Cause a lot of these movies, like, the movie happens and yeah, we get to learn a bit about the character, but it doesn't affect the entire franchise really at all. But the Winter Soldier does a couple things that actually affects everything going on, which I really appreciated. Even though the Winter Soldier himself isn't the most interesting villain, I do like the depth he has with Steve Rogers. I think their old friendship really does make a difference in terms of you feeling something for one of these villains that's just another villain. But their 1v1 fight is one of my favorite action scenes in the entire franchise. It's so badass. The elevator scene is great. I mean, like, the Winter Soldier just has awesome action for any movie, not just the Marvel franchise. This is the one that made me really like Captain America as a character, and I really do think it's just because of the elevator scene.
Stay down. Final warning.
I could do this all day.
Yeah, the Russo brothers own my entire top 3, and I'm really cool with that. Everybody talks about how good the airport scene is, but the thing I think I actually like about Civil War the most is how it handles a lot of the side characters and introducing a lot of new characters. It introduces both Black Panther and Spider-Man, and I really do think they shine even bigger here than in their own movies. Tom Holland is witty without ever feeling too corny. Chadwick Boseman is just so badass here, it's awesome. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man even stole like every scene he was in. And don't worry, we'll talk about Ant-Man much later. The way they use Bucky as a plot device, again, is pretty interesting, even though he doesn't really have too much of a good personality. That's why I'm kind of liking the Falcon and Winter Soldier show so far, that we actually get to see what the fuck is wrong with this guy. I do think maybe the last fight between Iron Man and Captain America could have been a little bit better. I thought it was a little underwhelming compared to the awesomeness of the scenes before it, but it's still in my top 3 Marvel movies. It's great. It's a great time.
I humbly present the Jericho.
Yo, Iron Man still rips. I loved it back in theaters. I loved it when I watched it on DVD about a dozen times as a kid, and I still really do think it's one of Marvel's best movies to date. Robert Downey Jr. is great, but you already know that. The action's fun, the jokes all land, and it's probably the best origin story, in my opinion, in the entire franchise. The whole opening act with him being held hostage is great. It's a great way to introduce a character that nobody really gave a shit about before 2008. And even though it's the first in the entire franchise, it's still one of the best.
We're not a team. We're a time bomb.
There was so much hype for this back in 2012, and everybody was also kind of skeptical because it was like, how are you gonna fit all these characters in one movie and have them all shine? Yet Joss Whedon found a way. And although Joss Whedon kind of sucks now and he ruined Justice League, he did a really good job with the Avengers. He did awesome. The personalities of these big characters all mesh together so well, leading to an awesome action finale. I mean, the third act of this movie is one of the best final acts of any of these movies, for sure. I thought Loki was a very entertaining villain. He's probably the second best behind Thanos. Like I said, not much to compete with in this franchise, but he's still an entertaining enough time. Besides Infinity War, yeah, I do think this is the best Avengers movie that we've gotten. And I know there's already people commenting down below, where's Endgame? Don't worry, it's coming soon. Relax.
What a bunch of a-holes.
This is another one where everyone thought this was going to flop. I mean, you had a tree, a raccoon, Chris Pratt. It wasn't seeming like the best thing ever, but now it's by far one of the most universally loved Marvel movies, and I think it's for a good reason. It's weird though, because there's not really much I could add to the Guardians of the Galaxy praise. Everybody likes it, the jokes are funny, the world is just so colorful and feels so vibrant compared to everything else going on in the MCU. The characters are all great, and I've seen this movie like 3 times. I've seen most of these movies once. Like, it takes a lot for me to want to rewatch a lot of the Marvel movies, honestly, but Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a good time, and it's one of those ones, if you don't like it, I'm sorry you're a boring person.
Heads up, Nick Fury's calling you.
I don't really want to talk to Nick
Answer
Fury.
the phone.
Why?
Because if you don't talk to him, then I have to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. You sent Nick Fury to voicemail?
I gotta go.
I was shocked that I enjoyed Spider-Man Far From Home as much as I did, considering I didn't really like Homecoming all that much. Tom Holland is great in the role, and as much as nostalgia wants to tell me that Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man, I think it's pretty clear that Tom Holland absolutely destroys the role and has proven to be the best iteration of the character so far. There are a couple things though that I think makes the sequel way better than the predecessor. For one, I love the vacation vibe of this movie. Seeing Spider-Man in a setting besides New York was actually super refreshing, and I didn't really think I needed it, but seeing him going around Europe and doing all the European things, it was a good time. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was great. I thought he was one of the better MCU villains that we've gotten so far, and his whole trippy fight sequence with Spider-Man is probably my favorite in the entire franchise of the MCU. I don't know if after credit scenes have anything to do with this ranking, but if we're gonna include one that needs to be mentioned, Far From Home has the best one in my opinion, for sure. It was fucking great. It's not my personal favorite Spider-Man movie ever, but of the 2 that we've gotten in the MCU, I do prefer this one.
Whatever it takes.
Some will scream blasphemy that this is number 8 on a list of 23 movies, but it's in the top 10. What do you want me to do? It's a good time. It feels like a good, coherent companion piece to Infinity War, and it has a lot of good moments in it. I think they really handled the end of Iron Man and Captain America's arcs as best as they could. I think you couldn't have given them a better wrap-up to their stories here. But I think the thing that keeps it back from being in the top 3 or top 5 even is, this might sound crazy, people love this part, but I think the end fight with everybody there was kind of disappointing. I wanted something on the scale of Lord of the Rings 2 Towers, you know? It was just something that should have been super epic, and it was fine. I preferred the fight before the big fight, with the big 3 going up against Thanos, and you know, it's really well choreographed. It's awesome. The ending fight, it was kind of just like, let's throw them all together and see what happens. And it could have been cooler. I know people love it, but I feel like the climax of the biggest franchise in movie history that made the most money ever deserved a little bit more. Also, Thor raging at Fortnite against Noob Master 69 is, I mean, come on. Come on.
Noob Master, hey, it's Thor again. You know, the God of Thunder? Listen, buddy, if you don't log off this game...
It's good, but I never feel like sitting through the entire 3 hours of it ever again. So, let's move on. Okay, we have 2 hot takes in a row, I guess, because I think this movie's actually pretty good. Every list I've seen, people put Incredible Hulk at like the second to worst in the entire franchise. And maybe it's me being nostalgic. Maybe it's because Hulk was my favorite hero when I was growing up, when I was a little chase. But damn, The Incredible Hulk is a good time, I think. All of the scenes where he's hulking out are just super entertaining. His fight with Abomination is a complete CGI mess. But you know what? I kind of love it. Ed Norton does a pretty good job as Bruce Banner. Is it The Godfather? No. Do I need The Godfather from a Hulk movie? No. I just love how he feels like a fucking animal in this one. And I preferred it way more to the Ang Lee Hulk when I was a kid.
What were you the god of again?
Until this one came out, Thor was definitely my least favorite of the Avengers characters. He was just so boring. However, if you decide to give up your boring character to Taika Waititi and just let him do whatever the fuck he wants with him, you end up with a version of the character that I think every single person enjoys more than the old Thor. I mean, not only is Chris Hemsworth hilarious in this movie, but all the little side characters that Waititi throws in there are all just super fun and enjoyable. And, you know, Tessa Thompson, she's badass. Cate Blanchett, decent villain. Tom Hiddleston's always great. Jeff Goldblum's Jeff Goldblum. Like, there's a lot to really enjoy here. It's a good time. Visually, it's definitely one of the most unique films in the entire universe. Gave off a lot of cool Guardians of the Galaxy vibes, which I guess makes sense since they're going to be the future team up in their movies. And like Guardians of the Galaxy, this is one of the few where I feel like no one really ever complains about it. Like, it seems like a lot of people think Thor Ragnarok's one of the best in the entire franchise, and I have yet to find a single person that prefers either of the first Thor movies over this one. And I think there's a good reason for that. I'm not gonna lie, Ultron really disappointed me when it came out. It's one of the bigger disappointments I've experienced in the movie theater, honestly. I was so hyped for it. I thought it looked so cool. And then it just didn't live up to what I expected it to be. Which is fine if a movie doesn't meet your expectations of like what you wanted it to be. But I still didn't think it was all that great. I rewatched it a couple years ago. I think it's just fine now. But I do think it's definitely the worst of the 4 Avengers movies. James Spader was good as Ultron, but I feel like they could have gave him a bit more to do. At the end of the day, he seemed a little underwhelming as a character, even though I did like the voice. Honestly, kind of similar to my thoughts on Endgame. I thought the last act of Ultron wasn't as cool as it could have been. I don't know, there's just something about the way the first Avengers finale flows that just feels much better than the Ultron one. And I liked how they introduced Quicksilver, Wanda, and the Vision, but they made Quicksilver exit already and kind of just wasted his character. It does have entertaining moments, for sure, but I just never feel the urge to rewatch it as much as the other Avengers movies, so I put it in like middle of the pack for MCU movies. Okay, from this point on, I've only seen these movies one time in the theater. I still feel like I have the same opinion I would if I rewatched them. I just know the feelings I had while watching them. Maybe one day I re-binge the entire MCU, take 3 fucking nonstop days and do it. But as of right now, this is where I stand with the following MCU films.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. Wakanda forever! The revolution.
I was disappointed just because I thought the way the Russo brothers directed Black Panther and Civil War made him come off so much more badass. And he's still, like, Chadwick Boseman's for sure one of the highlights still of this movie. But I liked the use of his character more in Civil War. He just felt more like Batman-ish and, I don't know, more ruthless in a way. Wakanda is an awesome world for sure. I just don't feel like the visuals ever really make it come off as cool as it can be. There's a "what are those" joke in this movie. It's like, come on. Come on, Ryan. I love Ryan Coogler. I think he's one of the most interesting directors working today. I think he's one to really watch out for. But just some of the Marvel jokes in here really made it stand out as cringy more than usual to me. And the visual effects in a lot of parts are really bad. Like the rhinos, the train scene, everyone talks about it. Just didn't really do it for me. I am curious to see what Ryan does with the sequel because I thought Fruitvale Station and Creed were both great. And Black Panther, it's an okay movie. I think it's still worth being in the pretty much top half of the MCU just by a smidge. But it doesn't really matter what I thought of this movie, honestly. I mean, rest in peace Chadwick Boseman. Absolutely killed it as the character. And even though I think this movie's fine, it's clear that doesn't really matter because the cultural impact this thing has had already is much more important than the quality of the film itself. People praise the visuals of Doctor Strange, and I think they look kind of bad. Like, you could go for trippy visuals, but if your trippy visuals don't look that good, it doesn't mean they're good effects. I really liked Scott Derrickson. I really liked Benedict Cumberbatch in the role, but I didn't really like what either of them did with the character here. He was kind of just a dick, and he was fine, you know? And God, the ending fight was just so fucking annoying. It's just another boring origin story in this entire franchise. Didn't really do much for me.
It was the most amazing thing that's ever happened. So Mrs. Stark was like, hey, Underoos! And I just sort of flipped in, and I stole Cap's shield, and I was like, hey, what's up, everybody? And then...
Hey, just a second. Coming.
I just hate the vlog stuff, man. Like, I get it. Peter Parker's, like, instead of being a photographer, now he's a vlogger. Doesn't make it any less lame for me. I love Zendaya, but MJ was just really bad in this one. I thought they improved her a lot more in Far From Home. She was just very annoying here. I did like Michael Keaton as Vulture, though. I thought that reveal was just classic Spider-Man. Oop, it's like the bad guy's related to my friend, you know? It was handled really well, and I liked him as the villain. It was cool. It just tried to be quirky, coming-of-age movie, and it was Spider-Man. I've seen better Spider-Man movies. I think they already made a better Spider-Man movie in this franchise. A lot of people love this one. I don't. And that's fine, I guess.
I am Groot. Mm-hmm. I am Groot. Uh-huh. I'm Groot.
No! Baby Groot's great. I love Baby Groot. And the visuals are just as good here as they were in the first one. I can't tell you why I don't like Guardians 2, really, honestly. I remember sitting in that theater, not laughing at any of the jokes, found the characters not as likable anymore. I mean, Baby Groot's still great. I still like Bradley Cooper as the raccoon, but everything else was just kind of, okay, we've seen this already, and we just got it again.
You're Ralph Boner?
Boner.
I'm throwing it in here. You know what? I was going to do just the movies, but I gotta bring up how fucking disappointed I was with WandaVision. First off, it starts off terrible. All the comedy in this show was handled so poorly. Like, I get you were imitating another show, but just because you imitate a show's bad jokes and you make bad jokes doesn't mean your bad joke is a good joke. But then it was saved because Evan Peters showed up. I lost my fucking mind. It was one of the best reveals in fucking history. I lost my shit on the couch. And then they ended up calling him fucking Boner. Like, are you kidding? Like, it made me go from, oh, I'm gonna be a Marvel fan now, to I never want to watch a Marvel thing. But the Halloween episode that followed that reveal, I thought that was a great episode of TV. I was really into it. And then the whole ending just becomes classic Marvel boring bullshit.
I'm Ant-Man. I know. Wasn't my idea.
If Edgar Wright got to see his vision all the way through, I mean, this is easily top 3 Marvel movies. No question. Some people really hate Ant-Man. I just don't like it. Paul Rudd, I think, is the best choice you could have made for the character, but at the same time, like I said before, I think he just works better when he has a smaller role in something. Like, I don't need Ant-Man 3 Quantumanium. It's like, come on. I do like him when he's with the Avengers, and he's kind of just got a couple jokes. He's Ant-Man. He's a fun side character. He doesn't need a trilogy of movies. I do like the train fight scene here, though. I thought it was a unique way of using the shrink technology. I'm assuming that's just something that Edgar Wright had in the original script, so I'll give Edgar credit where he could have it. A lot of people consider Ant-Man to be the worst franchise in this franchise, but I think there's one that's definitely overall worse.
You should know that when you betray me, I will kill you.
When do we start?
I don't think Thor 2 is the worst Marvel movie. It seems like that is universally known as the worst one. I think there's a couple worse. I think it's better than the first one, which we'll talk about soon. Granted though, I don't really remember much about this movie. I know that doesn't really help my defense. It's not even really defense. I don't like Thor: The Dark World. That's the worst title for a superhero movie too. I remember Thor's gotta save the red stuff from the worst villain. He had absolutely no character whatsoever. Loki's there and he dies, but he doesn't die, and then he's like the king. That's all I really remember. But there's definitely worse Marvel movies out there.
Maybe you just need someone watching your back.
You know what I said about the first Ant-Man like 30 seconds ago? Apply every single thing from that movie, except take out the little pieces that Edgar Wright had thrown in there. So you just have a worse Ant-Man movie.
Some people call me a terrorist. I consider myself a teacher.
My name's Trevor Slattery.
Yeah, that's the reason it's this low on the list. Because they were hyping up Ben Kingsley's performance so stupidly much in the trailers. And then they just said, fuck you guys. Cool concept for a twist to make the villain, that's I guess Iron Man's biggest villain, not really a villain and an actor. I get it from a storytelling perspective, it's a twist that works. I still don't think it's really worth it though, because Ben Kingsley seemed like the much better choice for the villain, and then the fucking other guy was just boring as hell. I do like the airplane rescue though. That was cool. I mean, this one just really fucking bored me as a kid. And I was so excited to see Captain America in World War II. I thought it was going to be great. I was kind of bored out of my mind. I think the most obvious comparison is to Wonder Woman, and I do like Wonder Woman more than the first Avenger movie. Didn't really like Steve Rogers here. Didn't really like the villain. Couldn't really tell you much that happens besides that one scene where he like breaks down the door and starts shooting. It's just kind of boring. Don't have a desire to watch this ever again.
End this.
I saw this at a drive-in at 1 in the morning when I was 14 years old, which is like peak energy for 1 a.m. And I was still bored out of my mind with this movie. I don't like the first Thor movie at all. I think Asgard's boring. I think Thor's boring when he's like, another. Action's bad. Kat Dennings, not good here. Even though Kat Dennings as a person, she seems cool. As this character, absolutely not. Maybe I'd find more value in it if I rewatched it, but I'm telling you, this is the movie on the list that I have the absolute least desire to ever rewatch. I don't know why. It's like this and like the first Avenger are the two. Like I don't have any desire to ever watch them again. Don't know why that is. Thor's bad. It's probably the worst franchise overall within this big franchise, in my opinion.
That was a close call, huh, Goosey? Huh? Those bad guys still in there somewhere. Oh, motherfucking!
Like, somebody thought that was a good idea. I don't know who, but somebody did. I'm baffled at how boring Captain Marvel was, because I was actually really looking forward to it. It was off the Infinity War hype. It's when I'm into Marvel. It's like off a movie like that. I'm like, okay, I'm excited to see where we go to Endgame. And god damn, this was just such a snooze fest. Which is so weird because I really like Brie Larson. Brie Larson is one of the better actresses working today for sure. And she just wasn't really given anything to do with the character yet. Again, it's another boring origin story where it tried to build up more of a world, but it's the most basic, boring alien shit. Like, they put an after credits scene with WandaVision that connects with this, I guess. It's just like, who cares about these aliens right now? Honestly, my favorite part of the movie is there's like a scene where she has like some sort of vision or something or dream. I don't remember what the fuck it was, honestly. But it was basically like, you're a woman and you could do anything, and usually shit like that's gonna come off super corny, but it's the only part of the movie I remember actually liking. So, Captain Marvel, just really bad. I think Captain Marvel 2 can be good. I think, because I didn't like the first Captain America, so, and then Winter Soldier was great. It's my second favorite. So I do think there's potential for there to be a really good Captain Marvel movie. It's just not the first one. This is fun to talk about for a second because this is the first time in my life, I swear to God, that I was ever disappointed by a movie. It didn't take much to entertain me at 14 years old, but I remember going to the theater, sitting down to watch Iron Man 2 It ended, and I turned to my friend and said, well, that really fucking sucked. It was a lot for me to process as a kid. It sounds so sad. That Iron Man 2 was bad. It just like, it was such a heartbreak. That was my first heartbreak, kind of. I know a lot of people actually defend this movie now. I don't want to give it the time of day. There's too much precious time in life. We don't have enough of it. I'm not going to spend it rewatching Iron Man 2. The only thing I remember from that movie is the racetrack, Mickey Rourke just, and then the car flip. All I remember, besides being just vastly disappointed with it. And that's how I'd rank all the Marvel movies and WandaVision, I guess. Comment down below. Let me know how you rank these movies. Which ones do you think I should give a rewatch? Because who knows, maybe my mind would change all these years later. I think it's fun to see other people's rankings, see where everyone else is feeling. I know there's a lot of Endgame lovers out there, and maybe you're mad that I only put it at number 8, so let's have a conversation about it. You let me know. Be sure to subscribe for more franchise rankings and other lists and all the cool stuff, you know? I'm gonna be doing it all now. And this is Chase, we're chilling with Chase, and I'll catch you next time.